the restaurant industry was among the hardest hit during the pandemic, and while things are slowly returning to normal, experts say that issues involving inflation, labor shortages, and COVID-related debt continue to threaten thousands of restaurants across the country. In this video, we will explore how the federal government has failed to provide adequate financial support and relief for the restaurant industry during the pandemic. One of the main challenges facing restaurants is the looming deadline to repay the Canada Emergency Business Account, CEBA, a loan that was designed to provide financial relief to restaurants during the pandemic. The deadline to repay the loan is on deck. 31/2023. According to Restaurants Canada, bankruptcies in the industry are up by 116% since 2022, and about half of restaurants aren't profitable right now. Many restaurants are struggling to pay back their loans, while also dealing with rising food costs and reduced revenues. Restaurants Canada is calling on the federal government to provide a comprehensive CEBA repayment plan that would allow restaurants to pay back their loans over a period of 36 months instead of all at once. The organization says this would give restaurants more breathing room and help them survive the post-pandemic recovery. However, the federal government has not yet responded to this request, leaving many restaurants in limbo and uncertainty. Another issue that restaurants are facing is the lack of sector-specific support from the federal government. While the budget 2023 addressed some positive measures for the restaurant industry, such as reducing the federal alcohol excise duty, it did not include any targeted programs or funds for food service businesses. Restaurants Canada says that most restaurants will need continued government support to survive Canada's recovery from COVID-19, especially as they cope with inflationary costs and labor shortages. The organization is asking the federal government to extend and strengthen support for food service businesses in areas such as wage subsidies, rent relief, tax credits, and grants. It also urges the government to work with provinces and territories to ensure that reopening plans are based on clear and consistent criteria and that restrictions are lifted as soon as it is safe to do so. Restaurants Canada says that these measures are essential for restoring consumer confidence and helping restaurants rebuild their businesses. The restaurant industry is a vital part of Canada's economy and culture, employing more than 1 million people and contributing more than $90 billion in annual sales. However, without adequate financial support and relief from the federal government, many restaurants may not survive the post-pandemic recovery. The federal government needs to act now before it is too late to save thousands of jobs and businesses across the country. The restaurant industry in Canada is facing a full-blown crisis due to the combined effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation, labor shortages, and debt. One of the most affected groups in this crisis are the restaurant workers, who have been neglected by the federal government in terms of their needs and challenges. Restaurant workers are essential for the survival and success of the food service sector, but they often face precarious and unsafe working conditions. They have to deal with low wages, tip-based income disparity, wage theft, lack of benefits, long hours, stress, abuse, and addiction. The pandemic has only exacerbated these issues, as many workers lost their jobs, faced reduced hours or income, or had to work under increased health risks. The federal government has failed to address the specific needs and challenges of the restaurant workers in its pandemic relief programs. For example, the Canada Emergency Business Account, CEBA, loan, which was designed to provide financial relief to restaurants during the pandemic, has a repayment deadline of DEC 31/2023. This puts a lot of pressure on restaurant owners and workers, who are still struggling to recover from the losses and debts incurred during the lockdowns and restrictions. Restaurants Canada, the not-for-profit association that represents 30,000 restaurants across the country, is calling on the federal government to provide a comprehensive CEBA repayment plan that would allow restaurants to pay down their loans over a period of 36 months instead of all at once. Another example of the federal government's neglect is the lack of support for restaurant workers' mental health. The restaurant industry has the highest rate of addiction of any professional field, and many workers suffer from anxiety, depression, and trauma due to the stressful and abusive nature of their work environment. The pandemic has only worsened these mental health issues, as workers face uncertainty, isolation, and fear. However, the federal government has not provided any specific funding or resources for restaurant workers' mental health support or treatment. The federal government needs to recognize that restaurant workers are not disposable or replaceable. They are human beings who deserve respect, dignity, and protection. They are also vital for the recovery and growth of the restaurant industry and the Canadian economy. The federal government needs to act urgently and decisively to address the needs and challenges of the restaurant workers, such as health and safety, wages and benefits, and job security. Otherwise, it will be too late to save thousands of restaurants and workers from bankruptcy and despair.